Anders Helseth is a senior analyst at Arcane Research, where he helped put together the State of Lightning report that Arcane published in October 2021. This report is a great overview for anyone who wants to learn more about the Lightning Network and understand some of the innovation happening right now. In our conversation, Anders and I discussed a deep dive into all the different metrics shared in the report. We discussed adoption since the report was published, and we looked forward and we started to think about predictions and think about what might be the next catalysts that take Lightning to the next level and usher in the next era of growth. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know you guys will too. Just a quick shout out before we get into it. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure, and they are today's sponsor. We will have more from Voltage later in the episode in the Lightning round. Hope you enjoy this episode. Anders, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to have you on and discuss a report you've been working on. You've worked on one report, you published it, the State of Lightning report, through your work at Arcane Research. But you're working on another report, and you're working on updated metrics and updated adoption figures here. I'd love to dive into some of this research you've been doing. But maybe before we get into the intricacies of the reports you've worked on, how about we start with the first moment you kind of realized the Lightning Network was important and worth putting all this time into and effort into to writing these reports?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I will kind of split it into two. Before I started working in crypto as my full-time job, I worked as a consultant, and the CEO of the whole Arcane group that Arcane Research is a part of, he was actually a colleague of mine in this consultancy firm back in the day. So, and he has always been very much into Bitcoin. So he was kind of the guy that brought me into it. And I remember in 2017, him raving about this Lightning network. And so that was the first time I understood it. And that, yes, this fills really a hole in the Bitcoin network on the blockchain. So that was the first time I felt the importance of it, I would say. And I started working in full-time here at Arcane less than a year ago. So before that, I had tried some Lightning payments for fun, doing some Lightning roulette and going 50x long on melon markets for small sums and stuff like that. But it was really when I and the team started digging into all the corners of the Lightning Network and really putting together the picture that I feel like I really understood it and what it can be used for. And that's was when my eyes opened widely, I would say. And they were like a little bit open from 2017 already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar, you wrote this report called The State of Lightning, published in early October of 2021.
Yes.
And it covers everything. I mean, you have a great, this is probably the resource that I'd recommend people, anyone listening to this show, reads if they're trying to learn more about the Lightning Network and they want a holistic overview. Because you start off explaining how the Lightning Network works, you go into all the adoption metrics, and you cover it across verticals. This is not just like a specific application of Lightning, it's all Lightning related companies and topics.
Yeah.
In this process of writing this report, was there anything that you learned that maybe was difficult to express in the report? Something that you learned that you kind of saw, maybe it's like a qualitative thing that, I know you have a lot of different metrics in the report, but was there anything qualitative that you learned about the health of the Lightning ecosystem, about the state of Lightning and the companies building in the space?
I learned a lot. If it's anything specific outside of what's in the report, I would say that many of the use cases, like the really good use cases, like streaming money or streaming sats on the Lightning Network, it's easy to explain how and why it should be like that, but people hasn't gotten around to it yet, really in a wider audience. So it's a bit frustrating, really, to see this possibility. It's ready, but it hasn't caught on mainstream yet. So the difficulty, I really would say, is it's no problem to explain this and understand why it can become big, but then right now the numbers don't really back it up. But we very much believe they will. And as you see in all new technology, adoption takes time. I just was told the other day that the original 3G specifications had video calling on it, and that didn't really become popular before 10 years later or something. So it's will take time, and that's a bit hard to communicate, I would say, and still like give the right impression, because it's looking very good.
Yeah, it's so easy to say like Lightning is faster, it's cheaper, it's better, but you're right. Like if you speak to someone who's not embedded in the space, they look around and they go, well, no one's using it. So like they think like it's that they kind of like push aside all those improvements because there's no actual tangible examples for them to grab onto, at least in the broader economy outside of the Lightning and Bitcoin space.
So that's like an overall challenge, I would say, to still give the right impression there. But we also talked with a lot of Lightning developers and companies, and it's so exciting to listen to what they are building and really feel a bit how good they are. And that was the same. We were at a conference adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, and the same there. It was really cool and impressive to see everything going on.
So let's get into some of the findings in this first report. One of the first points that you made in the report was that you believed wallet payment volume was kind of a better metric for assessing the growth of the Lightning Network than something like public capacity.
Yes.
Is this still true today? Do you still believe that this is kind of the North Star metric we should be focusing towards?
Yes, it's one of the North Stars, I would say. Public capacity shows how much Bitcoin there really are in the channels on the Lightning Network. But public capacity doesn't change if there's 0 transactions or if there's 1 billion transactions. So that's like explicitly, of course, a poor metric. If you look at history and compare it with the other estimates we made on use, they follow each other quite closely. So it's not useless. We'll just say that as a starting point. What we did an estimate for in our report, it's super difficult to do estimates based on public information. It's basically impossible. So we had a lot of help from industry participants that was willing to share numbers with us so we could make these estimates. What we made estimates for was what I refer to as the easy to use or commonly used wallet providers. What I mean by that is that you don't need your own node or anything to get started on the Lightning Network. It doesn't have to be custodial in that sense, because more of these services spin up a node for you. But like you can dive right into it without having a node beforehand to connect it. So we believe that when this spreads out wider, and it already is spreading out wider beyond the, not Bitcoin professionals in the word, but those who are really good at this and have been in Bitcoin and Lightning for a long time, they run their own nodes and even adapt their own software, some of them. But we believe this commonly used wallets, who newcomers will likely use will be a really good metric to see the overall adoption spreading out. And of course, in those estimates, we miss the volume from those running their own nodes and transactions who doesn't interact with these wallets that we find. But the numbers in terms of people are much bigger in this commonly used wallet providers. But we have data indicating strongly that the amount, like the volume of transactions, the dollar value or sats value, is much bigger from these people running their own nodes. So let's call them super users or whatever. So our number is not this is the number that was transacted for payments on the Lightning Network. It's for that specific group.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So only the group that you can kind of access by surveying the wallet providers in the space.
And what we did there was we surveyed the wallet providers, got as much information from them as possible. Not everyone are, of course, willing to share everything, and that's fully understandable. So we got some really great data from some and some indicative, very high-level data from others. And then we had some good receiver, if you run a business, you get all the Lightning payments in, and if you are well connected directly to these wallets, you can at least say pretty much about the spread of wallets that's paying for you. And we used that to get a grip of the market shares of the different wallets by looking at the receiving data from several places that's heavily used.
That's really interesting. One of the things that I saw in the report was a growth. You had estimated the growth of people with access to a Lightning wallet.
Yeah.
And that had shot up in the month leading up to the report. I think it was maybe 87,000 people before in August, and 9.7 million in September.
Yeah.
Was that mostly due to Chivo and El Salvador's launch of kind of the Lightning Network integrating with the network?
Yes. The August number is an estimate based on the user numbers from these different wallets. And the reason for it to really be an estimate is that we don't know, luckily, which person is behind each wallet. We know that this provider and this provider has so many different wallets, but we don't know if it's the same people having everywhere and stuff. So we had to make some assumptions on that. But I think around 100,000 is a good estimate there. It can be a bit lower. It can be quite much higher. So the ones in that number from August, let's say call it 100,000, those are what I would call aware Lightning users. They have made that wallet to do something on the Lightning Network. Then what happened in September is that the Chivo wallet came. There, by the end of September, I think it was about 3 million who had downloaded the app. And they, by doing that, have access to Lightning payments on an installed app. That's really how we defined it. That you have what I call one-click access to Lightning payments on an installed application. So that was part of it. And also Paxful, with their 7 million, roughly 6-7 million user base, integrated Lightning payments. So it's really this Chivo is like a special case with the rolling out that one. And then it's other services with large user bases introducing Lightning to their service. And this number in the new report we have, it will be closer to 100 million, driven largely by Cash App, because now they have the Lightning integration, but there is also plenty of others. What we call neobanks, like Cash App, Strike, Chivo is really a neobank, and there's plenty integrating the Lightning Network payments into that service.
Yeah. So at a high level, then we have, I think Chivo, I saw a number a while back that said they had now 4 million people.
Yeah,
Cash App, I've seen various estimates, one as high as 70 million users on the
yeah,
platform. Um, you mentioned Paxful has 6 or 7 million.
yeah,
So right there, you're already at 81 million people, assuming there's no duplicates.
yeah,
Um, that's people now with access to Lightning on an installed app
yeah,
that's like already on their phone or on their computer.
yeah, and that's really cool. And the way you have to kind of interpret these numbers is it's not a growth in the same kind of users as the ones that
Right.
were there before, because they are more now. It's people. Most of these 80 million perhaps don't even know, don't understand what that thing on their app is. But
Right.
it's so close. It is on a service they use,
Mm-hmm.
and gradually people will try it, and then it will catch on. But it takes some time.
Yeah,
We think.
I see. So the among that first 100,000, those are like the power users.
Yeah,
They're using a Lightning app just for access to the Lightning Network. Like they already are deciding they want to use it. Whereas this close to 100 million now, most of them are kind of like they're not using it for the Lightning Network necessarily. The Lightning Network is available to them now,
yeah.
but many of them just don't even know what the network is or why it's important yet.
Yeah, I think that's true. And what should be said, of these, I call it like the original Lightning wallets, those who were in 2020 and already there, though they also have impressive growth in their numbers. But of course, it
Mm,
drowns in 60, 70 million from Cash App,
yeah,
like in the
right.
numbers.
What do you think is going to be the application that gets these, 60, 70, 80 million new users that now have access to Lightning to first experience it and to actually make use of the network?
Yeah, yeah, that's a $1 million question, I guess. Uh, it's hard to be very confident in the answer here. You, of course, have the remittance payments, which that's there now. I think the problem there is really the onboarding process to get from dollars to the Bitcoin network and then send it wherever and then back to dollars or whatever you want. Strike, for instance, has it solved within their system, but that's only in a few countries. And to get like to use the Lightning network as this transfer layer without interacting with it, that is a killer application if you solve on and offboarding, I would say. So like border crossing payments, of course, that's a bit, of course. You also, I would say, content services like podcasting, streaming, gaming, if that is done well in a good user interface somewhere, and you can easily, many people own Bitcoin, and let's say the big exchanges integrate Lightning, so you can just, because that's unfortunately where the most people have it. Not unfortunately, but
Right.
that's how it is. If you suddenly, and the young people are way overrepresented, a lot of young people own Bitcoin and crypto. So if you get a good like platform for these streaming, podcasting, everything, and it's easy to connect, even to just your Bitcoin, I think that can be popular and it can be a whole new use case instead of paying. I don't know how much you pay for Netflix in the US, but let's say $20 a month. If you're not
Yeah.
using it that much, you perhaps can pay $1 or $2 each time you want to access something, and that goes to the artists and stuff. I think that's a killer application. because artists should want it, and content creators. It moves power from the centralized service to the one producing the content. Gaming, if it's integrated, where you can have rewards, like really betting on yourself is one way, or you can have a whole economy where the currency is actually Bitcoin. I think that would be way more powerful than most of these other games who spin up their own token to do it. So integrating the Lightning Network into games, like basically you could have done it with dollars and people would use it, but then the transfers have to be so high, and it works much better with the Lightning Network. Small payments, instant everything. So I think contenting, you can put gaming under content, is I would think could be a killer application. And I also believe just regular payments. When I walked around in El Salvador, it was easy to use the Lightning Network and Bitcoin. And I brought my bank card from Norway and tried to took out some dollars at the airport. And then we went there with filled Lightning wallets, you can say. And the dollars soon ran out because plenty of people, they prefer taking cash there. But then when I went to take out some more dollars, the bank wouldn't let me withdraw dollars there. And I tried calling them, and it was a lot of stuff, and I have to send pictures of everything. So I just didn't bother and decided to do everything by Bitcoin after that. And that worked very well, very well. So instead of, it can make things less hassle-free. And I think you shouldn't underestimate that.
Mm-hmm. I guess one of the challenges is just going to be, as you mentioned, like onboarding people from dollars to Lightning is still a challenge in a lot of remittance situations. And you're right, there's also a big pool of Bitcoiners that have Bitcoin, haven't quite discovered the Lightning Network, and may be like prime use cases. They could be like the perfect users for Lightning if they had the tools to move that Bitcoin onto the Lightning Network. Many of whom still don't have those tools, just because we don't have much in the way of exchange integrations today. Which do you think is a harder problem to solve? Is it that onboarding people from fiat money, or is it getting people from Bitcoin to Lightning? And I can imagine both would be incredible boosts to the network if we could make bridges there, right?
Yeah, I definitely think the biggest problem is onboarding from regular national fiat currency to because that costs a lot, and if you do it as an investment long term, that's of course not as important. But if you want this quick on-off without like I can pay my grandmother who hates Bitcoin using the Bitcoin network, she has to get them off to Norwegian kroner as we have here seamlessly without things getting lost or part of it getting lost. So I'm not sure like what's the end game, if it's infrastructure layer between fiat currencies or if it's a currency in itself. Both are perhaps possible at the same time, but I think it can work as a currency in itself really well. And when you start using Bitcoin, as we did in El Salvador, you start thinking in sats actually. So it's it's not impossible to envision that either.
It's becoming a unit of account.
Yeah, perhaps not in the whole world at the same time, but I wouldn't rule it out, at least.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing from the remittance side of things? So I know you had a bunch of data on remittances in your Lightning report.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about the progression there and maybe remittances within El Salvador? Because I imagine that's a pretty big market.
Yeah.
But then remittances outside of El Salvador as well?
Yeah, I I think you definitely can say that some remittance is sent over the Lightning Network. And also, you can, of course, if you send larger sums, you perhaps might as well use the blockchain. So I think it's important to view Lightning as a part of like the Bitcoin network. And the use case of Lightning is lower fees for certain payments of a certain size. That will vary, of course, with the popularity and how many wants to use the blockchain. And also if it's important for you to get that instant settlement. And for many applications, perhaps like remittances, I would say that instant settlement is not important. You can wait an hour.
Right.
So if it's smaller amounts. The problem, I do believe for that is the on-off ramps again. And here it's often from dollars, like cash dollars or cash money onto the Lightning and then out again. I don't think that has become really big. We don't see anything that supports that. We see that there are more remittance payments. They are definitely growing fast, but I don't think it's a huge chunk of the remittance market.
And what would you guess if you had to estimate the volume, the dollar volume of remittances going over Lightning? Would we be talking hundreds of thousands a day, millions a day, or maybe if you want to do it by year?
Yeah,
what do you think that volume would, if you had to guess a number?
Yes, that would be very much a guess. I would guess like average a day, a lot less than $100,000.
Interesting. And that's over Lightning.
Yeah. I don't see any support. The remittance market, like everything.
Yeah, how large would that be? So like if we're saying the estimate maybe is, let's say, if it's less than 100,000, let's call it 50,000 on Lightning, what would the remittance market be in a single day?
In a single day, if you look at, I think it would be to a country like El Salvador, I think it's about $10 million a day.
Okay. So we're talking less than 1% still of remittances, even in El Salvador, are probably happening on Lightning.
Yes, I would think so. I have to say that we don't have this explicitly, but by what we see, we don't have data that backs up that it has taken a huge chunk of the remittance market. Right. I would very much love to have a chat with Strike about this, because I think they are the ones who know the best. Because Strike is, of course, in the US and El Salvador, and there you have that sweet on-off ramp, basically not to cash, but at least to dollars that you can use. Right. So I am open to being very, very wrong on this, and I certainly hope so. But by what we have seen, it's also kind of our analysis of it, and like to support that notion is also if you look at the remittance numbers through the regular banks and Western Union and companies like this, they are increasing in tandem with the better economy and everything. And you don't really see it certainly like diving down after the introduction of Bitcoin in El Salvador. You don't see that.
Oh, that's really interesting. So yeah, because you're seeing increasing payment volumes happening in traditional rails on the banks, you're making that estimate saying, listen, like it probably isn't eating into much of the fiat system yet.
Yeah.
Because it's still increasing, and maybe if you saw a dip, you could conclude differently that.
Yeah, you don't really. It should increase anyway, even if Lightning took a bigger chunk because it has gone up as people have gotten back to work, and a lot of these remittance payments come from people who have probably been laid off during the COVID pandemic and jobs like that. So increases, but you don't see either that it increases less in Latin America and El Salvador, and so you don't really find it there. So it's not going down, but you don't really see like, oh, here it's growing slower than it should. We don't see that yet.
Right. Okay. So if we assume as a rough number, 0.5% maybe of remittances are happening on Lightning. When you look to other verticals in Lightning, other ways that Lightning is affecting other industries,
Yeah.
do you think that anything else is at that same level? Tapping into maybe close to 1% of the total industry's volume. Like I think of, content streaming or podcasting or gaming.
Yeah.
Do you think any of those, or trading, are any of those numbers tapping into a percentage of the overall volume?
I don't think so. If you put me on the spot, yet the trading, perhaps it depends on how you define it. Really, is it the set percentage of the users, or is it the percentage of the amounts? Because it's a few players or a small portion that really dominate like the volumes. But still, by any of those metric, I don't think it's at 1%, for instance. If you
Right. Yeah.
go to a niche market in gaming, which is reward gaming, then perhaps more than 1%, I guess, because for instance, Thunder Games and you have this Saritobi, and they are really nicely demonstrating the power of Lightning for microtransactions, and
Yeah.
that as you have been told before, is hugely popular, and
Right.
also works as a great onboarding tool for that will benefit the greater ecosystem, I think.
Yeah. So do you figure among these different applications, would you say gaming or would you say trading would be the next kind of like big application to take off outside of remittances? Or is there another one that you're kind of keeping a close eye on?
Uh, I, as said earlier, I think it's super hard to like pick one. I definitely think Lightning to power a gaming economy is super exciting. It will require a gaming developer that is willing to wait for profits rather, because the way it is now, if you are keen on making money fast, the rational play is probably to make your own token and get hype around that and start selling it off. So it will require a gaming developer that takes the long-term view, I think, because they will have a good currency in their game, which they won't profit from directly. They have to take a small cut of everything going on. But in these other cases, they profit 100%. I think many of them, because they own a lot of the tokens from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so that's a problem, I think, on the developer side. But you have developers there, and like CBD who has integrated it into CS, things like that will become popular, I would guess.
Right. Do you have a sense for as you're watching and as you're learning from some of these participants in the Lightning space, do you have a sense for whether or not a lot of the payment volume is happening from spending on Lightning or earning? Or do you have like a breakdown of those two? Because I know in certain venues, like specifically in gaming,
Yeah.
it's probably more likely that it's someone earning on Lightning, whereas other venues may just be someone sending money out. If it's a remittance, it could just be sending money, and one person could be taking the exact same action, moving money in one direction all the time. Do you have a sense for what that flow is like for people? Like, is it a majority of people that are earning? Is it a minority? What's that kind of breakdown like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In terms of numbers, like overall numbers, there's a huge amount of incoming transactions to these commonly used wallets I talked about compared to the number of outgoing transactions. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah, so that's many times more incoming transactions than outgoing. And that is largely micro rewards. And as incoming, I have like separated out what comes from one wallet to another. That's an outgoing in this discussion. So these micro rewards are behind a lot of transactions in terms of value in combined value volume in Bitcoin or dollars. They do a small part of this. Then it's the large amount of volume is outgoing from these wallets. Then of course, someone's
Right.
outgoing is another one's incoming. But if you look at like people using it, it's
Yeah.
a lot of micro rewards and many, I would guess, just micro rewards and gather and save really, and perhaps use it one time or do it as stacking stacking sets as
Hmm.
an investment. Uh, so that's like the general thing, that a lot of people get rewards and a lot of people do payments as well, but not as frequently as they get rewards.
Yeah. That's something I find fascinating in the Lightning space is that it seems like to me, and it seems like the data is confirming this for you, um, we're spreading out sats among more people now.
Yeah,
As there's like more people earning, maybe they're earning small amounts, but there's more people earning and there's more people that actually have sats in their Lightning wallet. I start to wonder if that's almost a more important metric than the number of users with access to Lightning. Like for example, if someone has Cash App installed on their phone but has never used it, versus they have Cash App installed on their phone and they've also got 50 sats that they earned today from playing
yeah,
Thunder games. I wonder if that starts to um, be more of like the North Star metric for Lightning adoption, because now they not only have access to the Lightning network, but they have sats and no longer need to do that fiat
yeah,
to Bitcoin conversion.
yeah. I very much agree. That would be a great metric, and to have users who have received or sent at least one Lightning transaction, that would be a great metric. The
Yeah,
problem is getting it from these huge neobank applications.
right. What do you think are some of the big misconceptions about Lightning? Now that you've gone through this process, you've seen a lot of the data, um, and you've put together this report.
Yeah,
I think I get a sense that a lot of people they look at the public numbers, like public capacity,
yeah,
and instantly assume that that is equal to the growth of the network, and that if public capacity is growing at 3% per month, then therefore the network is, and like, oh, it's not that exciting. It's only 3%
yeah.
per month. What are some of those misconceptions for you that you constantly have to deal with?
Yeah, I think you are very much addressing it there, really. That over time, like in the long run, perhaps they will follow quite closely. But if you look at it now, and really before, in the period before we launched our report in October as well, you, you see that you can think, the way I think of it is that based on the amount and volume of transactions that has been done up to now, the Lightning Network capacity has been bigger than what has been needed. So there's a lot of room to grow within the capacity to like multiple times increase the transaction volume. And you also have, instead of just increasing capacity, you can also distribute it smarter. People get the running nodes getting better at liquidity, and routing algorithms getting better. And it's so much to extract from those 3,500 Bitcoins in public capacity that it's really not a pain point, the capacity. So what we saw was that use, both in terms of number of transactions and the value of them, increased much more than the public capacity. And public capacity also increased sharply up until October, but then it has grown slower since that. I don't think that's a good representation of the development in use. I think that's growing more. Certainly, it looks that way based on the numbers we have gathered so far. It isn't the same like explosive growth in relative terms as it was up until September, but things are pointing up and are looking better than the public capacity metric, if you like use that as your proxy for adoption.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know what you think about how much. I get that point. That's a really interesting way of framing it. That we have this capacity and we're not maxing it out right now. Like we're only using a fraction of what it can be used for, and we can increase payment velocity, increase payment efficiency, to move that 3,500 Bitcoin faster through the network.
Yeah.
How much do you think we can improve that? Like, can we get a 10x improvement in payment volume? Can we get 100x, 1,000x? What fraction of that capacity are we maxing out right now?
Yeah, to put a fraction on it is really difficult. I tried when we worked on the previous report. I tried asking René Pickart about this, the routing guru, as I call him, and it's a very complicated, like a lot of different variables that will go into this. And of course you have the use patterns are important, but you can counteract them with sending, like rebalancing towards exchanges and stuff. So I would say just like top of my head, you can go at least 10x with the current capacity utilized good.
Now, if you were to guess a number of a dollar value, and I know a lot of these numbers that we're going through here are estimates, and for listeners, like we're trying our best here to figure out what the true adoption of Lightning is, what the metrics are. If you had to put a number on it, what do you think payment volume on the Lightning Network is today? Or maybe what was it when you wrote the first report, and how has that changed?
Yeah, cool. First off, I just want to define like payments very shortly. What I define as payment here is that I intentionally send something to you, either as a transfer or as a payment for something. So a transaction, like a rebalancing transaction or anything like that, that's not a payment. So we, from and to these commonly used wallets, like mainstream wallets, we estimated that there was about $10 million going in or out in value in September. That, I think there's a lot of high volume in payments going on elsewhere, and it's mainly to exchanges for trading, I would guess. So like, but that's still a payment. So I would guess the total number in purposeful payments for a service or transfer to another person was about $20-30 million in September.
Right. So that on a yearly basis is somewhere around 300-400 million?
Yeah. Yes. And yes, I would guess so. And then of course, it's guesses based on all the data we have seen and stuff. So I might say something else later, but to the best of my knowledge, I would say that. And I think
Yeah.
it has increased by how much, where we are not fully certain yet. These commonly used wallets, payments for things like merchant payments and everything, gift cards, which is often a merchant payment via an intermediary. That has certainly increased a lot by what we see so far. Trading is a large part of volume going out from, I guess, all wallets, even personal nodes on the Lightning Network. And that volume is a bit driven by the price and stuff. So it can cloud it a bit. I would, for instance, if you compare November to February, I think you will see a large spike in volume driven by trading in November, and that is lower in February, for instance. So it's, but then you perhaps see these other payments going steadily up. So I think it's higher now, but exactly how much, I'm not sure. But I certainly believe that the amount of transactions, the number of transactions, is much, much higher now. And then volume is always a bit difficult because it's affected so much by large payments, and most of them are trading.
Do you have a sense for what countries are making up a lot of these Lightning payments? I imagine El Salvador is one of the more popular ones.
Yeah.
But did you do a breakdown at all of like where some of these payments are coming from, and maybe does it matter what the use case is? Like, are there certain use cases that are really popular in certain countries and other use cases that are not?
Yes, we had some information about geographical distribution, and that was basically based on the IP address of so other people having these wallets. And what we saw is that Africa, and especially in Nigeria, there's a lot of users there, and of course there's a lot in the United States. So, and you have in the Western world, you also have many of the wallets are there. So I think you can divide it a bit by which country and also the use case. Like here in Norway, those who have Lightning wallets are, I think, Bitcoin is cool, or they are using it for trading small amounts, or it's not really anywhere you can use it on the streets where it has any value. But that value, I would guess, I of course haven't been here in El Salvador, it's obvious. In parts of Africa and other places in Latin America, it's also by the numbers looks like it's being used for more real transfers between people or payments for something. And you also have a bit of that in the United States, I would say, but that's more these not closed because they are very open, but in smaller like groups of people, and more those who have been into Bitcoin or recently have become into like the Bitcoin community. It's not very much used outside that, I would guess, in the Western world.
Okay, so I want to now zoom out a bit and think about the next decade for Lightning.
Yeah.
I know you put a section in your last report highlighting some predictions, and again, like these are all estimates of what could happen over the next decade. And I want to highlight one thing that I saw in the report. You made an estimate of 364 trillion Lightning transactions per year in the year 2030. And you went on to explain further. I'm just going to read a little segment from the report here. You said many were skeptical of the internet and how it could be used to transfer files, emails, audio, and other content. These technical challenges were solved quicker than many expected. Today, 5 billion people use the internet. We send more than 60 billion WhatsApp messages per day, and it's estimated that we'll send 376 billion emails per day by 2025. Now, you do the math on that, the 376 billion emails per day, multiplied by 365 days, and you're already a third of the way there to that 364 trillion payments number.
Yeah.
Right? You're at about 100 trillion emails a year.
Yeah.
So when you frame it like that, it's not that crazy to think that there's going to be 364 trillion lightning payments happening in the next decade. I think it starts to, framed in that way, it starts to become a little more reasonable.
Yeah.
And you know, money's moving instantly, right? Like you can send many transactions. If you're listening to a podcast, there's people listening to this podcast right now who are sending in, you know, sats every minute.
Yeah.
So they're making, you know, 60 transactions per hour. And I don't think they're sending 60 emails per hour.
No, exactly. And it's hard to grasp, at least for me, such large numbers. But just think of if there's a service where you pay a small amount each second, each minute or so. And let's say I want to watch a movie with my girlfriend on Friday night. And when I go into this Google Play Store or Apple Store, then I have to like take the decision there. Either I pay the full amount or I don't do it. But let's say you can start watching a movie and you stream on it. And then after 5 minutes, oh, this was bad. I want another one. I can see that being a service that people will use. And if that gets traction, then the amount of transactions just flies through the roof.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the different business models for content on the internet and content on the Lightning Network? Because right now I'm seeing a lot of value for value payments.
Yeah.
That seems like it's an emerging use case where, like the podcast specifically is value for value. People,
Yep.
They don't have to send in anything, but if they get value out of it, they can send in sats.
Yeah.
The same is true for platforms like Stacker News. It's a Reddit style forum, and you don't have to send in sats to anyone. You can just lurk on the board and listen and read and absorb all the content for free. But if you want, you can send in payments.
Yeah.
And then I hear this other angle of, you know, paying for content in per minute increments.
Yeah.
Which do you think is going to be the model that kind of dominates here? Because I see the value for value approach being like it's an interesting new approach, but there's not much precedent for it. There's not much precedent for people choosing to pay when they don't necessarily have to. And I imagine this would be a alarming thing for a lot of the Web 2 startups to all of a sudden just say, pay whatever.
Yeah.
Pay whatever you want.
Yeah. I personally love that. As a business model, I think it's difficult. You have to have like a community backing you and provide a public good, and that I would say this at the point where now these services are providing a public good, which I go in. And the beauty of the Lightning Network is that, I can send very little because this is nothing. I might not want to send him $20, but this was good. I say I send him $1 or something. But if you look at, for instance, Wikipedia, they of course have some really strong backers. But if you just think about how many people have used Wikipedia a lot through their school days, for instance, how many of them have ever made a donation? And if it's free, people and they can pay, most people choose not to pay. I think so. I think it's difficult as a general business model. There certainly will be projects and a lot of stuff that where this value model works, but I think that would have to be something special. Like I would say Wikipedia is special in the long run to like make that model work.
Yeah, it seems like it's the distinction I have in my head right now is that it may work well for creators to do this value for value thing.
Yeah.
Or more for like even independent creators or individuals.
Absolutely.
It works well with social media where you can give someone a sat instead of a like.
Yeah.
But I agree. There's a lot of businesses that have real fixed costs, and like the production of movies in Hollywood is, these are budgeted out with hundreds of millions of dollars committed, and they need to know there's some money going to be flowing back.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to predict that to some degree, I think.
Yeah, so the big business will go that way, I think. But I definitely can see like every blogger, everything having this easy button, like donate. And when you can donate such small amounts, I think it will be a lot more probable that many will donate. So definitely and if you're really popular, it can probably become a significant income stream. So I definitely see that very much present in the future. But as I said, big business, I find it hard to see that they would do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to get into some predictions here. So we've talked about the publicly cited Lightning metrics, node capacity, channels, number of nodes. Among those three, which do you think will grow the fastest, maybe over the rest of the decade?
Okay, what was it? Public capacity?
Public capacity, number of nodes, and number of channels.
Number of channels. That's a good question. I would think public capacity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How come?
If you look at the Lightning network right now, I believe the incentives for an efficient flow lies in a bit of a centralizing in terms of the infrastructure to be able to have reliable payments. It can be solved by many different ways, but if you look at the number of nodes and channels right now, if you look at it just by how likely is it that my payment will go through painlessly to the destination, that would have a better probability of succeeding if you threw out quite a bit of nodes and channels that are not as well maintained, that periodically loses internet connection, goes down. And with the current algorithms that basically looks for the cheapest path in many of the implementations, you have this what I assume they call zombie nodes with zero fees, and they're really poor, going down all the time, and like they mess up their reliability. So when the use gets much bigger, I can definitely see like a bit of a cleaning up of that. It doesn't, in my mind, mean that any certain like participant gets a lot of power, because there will be many big ones, and you can choose which one of them basically. At least it's technically possible, even though in these wallets it's not there for you to choose, but it could definitely be like that. I think that can happen without like the decentralization becoming dangerous. you will also see, and I think it already happens, I think there's direct channels between participants that frequently exchange sums. And they can be large, like avoiding routing when possible. And that perhaps be private, so that's speaking against this public capacity, I would say the most. But as more and more goes through here, I don't necessarily think that it will grow in nodes, and at least it's basically nodes I'm thinking about, because
Right.
There will be some popular services and a lot of users. I don't think if you get millions and millions of users here, they will run their own node. I think it will be custodial, because that is often like the smoothest experience, and that's what people often go for. If you look at it, at least in the beginning. So I would say public capacity.
That's an interesting take. I would probably, I'm not sure if I would go nodes, but I would definitely push back on the argument that there may not be as many nodes in the future, or they may not grow as fast, if on the condition that, like, if nodes can do more than just be Lightning nodes. I think there's an interesting, the personal server space is evolving, and I'm hesitant to dismiss nodes as being like hobbyist things, because I think if they can expand the number of use cases for a node, it could become this device that everyone has. I don't think in its current iteration a node is useful enough to everyone. I don't think it makes sense to have billions of these. I think that's a great point. But I also see the quick growth of the app stores on Umbrel and Start9 and some of these services, and I'm like, if this becomes a thing that everyone sticks in their closet just like they have their internet router, it could grow pretty quickly. And then I would say the on the public capacity side, the thing that makes me not as bullish there is that public capacity is, there's a ceiling, there's a limit on that, right? You can only have 21 million Bitcoin. You can't go any higher than that. And realistically, you're not going to get anywhere close to 21 million. So I do see that there's going to be, there's definitely a cap on that, whereas there's no real cap on nodes or channels.
I'm
how much?
sorry.
Go ahead.
I must say you convinced me a bit there, because I was thinking a bit too narrowly as payments, like payments for something. And when you say what you do, I can't say I disagree with that. And for instance, sending decrypted messages to each other, but then I think it will like be networks. You will have like this payment middle or whatever you can call it, and then you can have these like clusters of nodes everywhere around it, and then I would agree that nodes should be the one that grows the most.
Interesting.
So I changed my mind.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I change my mind back and forth on a lot of this stuff on a daily basis, because there's just so little we know today. But another prediction that neither one of us knows the answer to, we're going to try though. What do you think public capacity will be in that same time frame, like a decade from now? How many Bitcoin?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not completely sure about, I think there will be more and more private capacity, but let's say we just think capacity, so I don't think too much about public capacity and private capacity. It's a bit either or. I think if you look 10 years, it could be very little. It also could be a lot. So I will say it's 3,500 today. Let's do 150,000 Bitcoin.
That's interesting. I probably would be in the same ballpark as that.
Yeah,
I would have guessed just out of no real analysis. I would just guess 100,000.
yeah.
But it sounds about right. Um, and you mentioned public and private capacity. Do you have any data right now on that composition? Because I know BitMEX did a report a while ago that often gets cited, and I think they had something roughly around 20% of capacity was private. Maybe it was 27 or something.
Yeah.
Did you get into that in your reports? And what do you think that composition is today?
I don't have any explicit knowledge on it. The estimates vary from 25% to 40 basically, and it's a bit what you measure, if it's capacity or the number of nodes and everything. They do it from gossip data, I have understood. Like that's the main component there. But what you see now is that, for instance, routing and destination are separating. Many of the big routers have also been like the most popular destinations to send payments. Just do for ease, do LN markets where you could trade, and they are also a large router. They have changed their structure to have like one public routing node, and then they have it's not really private because you can't find it, but then they have one channel from this node to like the receiving node they have. And I see more and more people like not hiding, but having receiver nodes in a private channel. They very well could have that with a routing node, and also popular like sender and destinations establishing private channels between them. When they get a better feel for where the flows will go, when they become more predictable, I definitely see it heading in that direction. Right now, I have no idea on how much capacity is private, to be honest, but I would think those old numbers, like relatively, still holds pretty well.
Interesting. Okay, one more question for you.
Yeah.
In your reports, in your last report, you highlighted two distinct growth phases for Lightning. One being that late 2018 phase, and then one being this kind of like 2021 phase.
Yeah.
And in between, it was mostly flat. There wasn't a ton of growth in those public Lightning metrics, at least.
Yeah.
What do you think the third phase of adoption is going to look like? Will it be as violent as those first two? Because those were pretty big spikes in Lightning activity in 2018 and 2021.
Yeah.
Will the next phase be just as violent? Who will catalyze that to happen? What will be the reason that we have this next phase?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your prediction on what that next adoption curve looks like for Lightning.
Yeah. Again, it's hard to tell, of course, but if I had to make a guess here, it's either countries introducing Bitcoin as legal tender, and as you see in El Salvador now, there's not a lot of use for Lightning payments to pay for them, but suddenly it gets traction, and then it bursts up, and the numbers are still small enough that this could like whoosh make it gone on the graph really what's now. So there you have the possibility like just regular payments for stuff. When that gets traction, you will see it blow up again. If I had to guess a time frame, I don't think it will explode in 2022, but because these things always take time, it's easy to forget when looking at it and understanding how good it is, that it takes a bit of time before it's okay that you and 5,000 other people know it, but the remaining 7 billion haven't understood it yet or doesn't care. They are certainly able to understand. So that, and also if this, I would say this streaming of money concept. If there's either in a game using it as in-game currency or for podcasting, stream video, paying for movies and stuff in a certain way. If somebody makes a good service for that, I think it soon could be like make the numbers we see now seem very small.
Right.
The time frame
Yeah,
is also difficult.
I see where you're coming from. I think I also agree that there's a lot of ways that we could see growth, and there's a lot of different. We have like a lot of different elements in play right now, and I guess the lesson here is that it's still uncertain which one of those things is going to be the next driver.
Yeah.
But we have so many of them that it's really fascinating to watch, and so many are independent of each other.
Yeah.
Too. Like remittances are basically entirely independent of gaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're entirely independent of merchants and of podcasting, right? Like all these things are happening on their own. Everyone's focused on their own little community within Lightning, trying to get traction there. And so it's not like we're trying the same thing in 10 different ways. We're trying 10 different things.
Yeah.
And if any one of those works, then we get, another big boost to growth.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
Definitely. And I would also say there's a high probability that perhaps the first like real killer application where people flood to it might not be anything we have mentioned even. It's often hard to envision.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, actually one final question for you.
Yeah.
I know I said that twice now.
Yeah, no problem.
You're releasing a new State of Lightning report at some point.
Yep.
I know you're working on it. Is there any hints or any specific data or insights you can share about maybe something that surprised you in this second version of the report?
Not really surprised, I would say. As we have talked about, the public capacity the growth has slowed. It's still growing. And what you see is that the early tendency that Lightning payments are more used to buy stuff than I would say physical things, like buying something at the shop. That is becoming a larger portion of payments. And I would say that that has continued. And in general, also the number of transactions, there are more users now. And they are probably experimenting with it and everything. So I would say that, like to make it simple, is that public capacity rightly shows that relatively the growth has slowed a bit down, but it was explosive. But it's still growing, and what the different companies working on the Lightning Network are doing is really exciting. And you can see now in September, we kind of talked about podcasting and value for value, as you called it. Now it's here, and it's growing very fast. Mm-hmm. So you must not remember that it's early. The network was launched in 2018, and right. It's not going through the roof yet, but it's growing, and the foundation is being laid for further growth.
That's awesome. Great way to end the show. And before you go, where can people find you? If listeners want to learn more about you and the work that you do, where can they go?
They can, for me personally, you can go on Twitter and look up Anders Helseth, my name, just in one. We also, I would advise you really to go to Arcane Research on Twitter. Easy to find. And if you want to go to we have made a new platform in Arcane, which we think will increase the user experience or reading our research, and we can put more out more often. So then you can go to arcane.no, start of Norway, /research. And
Okay.
so if you go one of those places, you will find what we do.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time. This was awesome, and I highly suggest anyone listening to this read through the last State of Lightning report, and hopefully we'll have this new report out shortly.
Yeah, it will be out in early April.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Welcome to the Lightning Round presented by Voltage. Voltage is the industry-leading provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. In fact, many of your favorite apps and services already use Voltage to scale their business quickly and easily without maintenance. Voltage also offers an inbound liquidity product called Flow, which helps you as a node operator get inbound liquidity easily. Overall, Voltage is creating the industry standard suite of non-custodial products, helping brands, engineers, and startups scale. To learn more about Voltage, visit voltage.cloud. Lightning round, here we go. As I mentioned in the last episode, I am recording this segment right now that you're listening to at the same time that I released episode 31, so I have not had the chance to see or respond to any of the comments and questions that you guys sent in for that episode, but I will get both episodes covered in episode 33, which is coming out next. So send in your comments and questions for this one and the previous episode. Both were really insightful. These were different perspectives. I want to know what you guys think. These are, I've been diving into all sorts of different rabbit holes on the Lightning Network. The last episode with Abu Bakar in Nigeria, and we're discussing more of the African Lightning ecosystem. And then this episode discussing Lightning metrics across the board. Would love to know what you guys think of the content that I've been putting out lately, and if you have any interesting recommendations for future guests. I'll be answering all your questions in the next episode. Should be out in a few days. Talk to you soon.